What is up, faithfuls? This is Dylan Frazier. I am here with Nothing But Niners, and we don't have our usual Steve on here. He had a little problem, so he couldn't make the podcast, but we definitely wanted to get it out to you today before Sunday. So I got my man Mike. You know him probably as King Gab. That's my boy right there. He's gonna introduce himself real quick.
Yeah, what's going on, faithfuls? It's your boy Mike. Nothing But Niners crew. We are in here, baby. I'm ready to talk some fantasy football.
Yes, sir. All right. We are obviously with Nothing But Niners. You can find us on about any social media site you can think of at Nothing But Niners. For me, you can find me at Dylan Frazier98 on Twitter. And I don't know your Twitter, so go ahead and shout it out real quick.
My personal Twitter is 49ers Mike _NF. You guys give me a follow there. Like Dylan said, we're on all of Nothing But Niners themselves. We're on everything. You guys, Nothing But 9ERS on Twitter, as well as on Snapchat. You got the Facebook page, Nothing But Niners, spelled all the way out, just like the website, nothingbutniners.com. We're everywhere, man. Check us out.
All right. So, you know, if you've watched before, you know pretty much what we got going on. I'm going to give you a list of starters and sitters that you're going to have this week. Since we don't have Steve this week, and I got Mike at literally the last minute, he doesn't really have a list. So my plan this week is I'm just going to go through my list, and I'm going to send it over to him, and he's just going to give you a little feel for what he thinks on my list. Now, the key is he doesn't know any of my list. So we're going to be definitely putting him on the spot this week.
Raw reaction, baby. I'm going to keep it 100% with you guys, all the way real.
I love it. Mike would never do anything but 100. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And if you don't know, it's a 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 defense. We do it for start, we do it for sit, and then we do a free agent pickup. And Mike surprised me, and he said he had his own free agent pickup for the week. And I'm excited for that. He said he also had a few questions for me, so we'll get ready to answer it. And I'm about to pull up the YouTube video now just so anybody in the live chat can go ahead and send me a message, and I can answer you anything you got for me. So while I pull that up, I'll go ahead and get started.
Well, you go ahead and pull that up. I want to talk a little BS real quick.
All right.
Really quick. So, and this is not going to be 49ers related because I understand this is the fantasy section. This week, there are a lot of tough matchups in the NFL. And there's going to be some things that I'm going to say on this broadcast that you guys are going to be like, yeah, but that defense. But I'm going to throw some logic at you guys. I want you guys to be ready for that. Pay attention closely to what I'm saying. Not saying that these guys are going to make or break your team, but there's going to be some good looks that you guys can grab out there this week, at least in my opinion, that are probably available in about 90% of fantasy leagues.
Definitely. And I feel like I just guessed exactly who your free agent pickup is going to be, but I won't spoil that. I do want to say, and I try to say this every time. Sometimes I forget, but I just want you to know, sometimes we list some big names in here, and that doesn't mean, like, if we list that name, you need to sit him. That means if somebody has a better matchup, try to play them. I understand if you have Mike Evans on your team, you're going to play him pretty much no matter what. But I'm just saying, if Mike Evans and somebody with a really good matchup are on there, you should consider that. So don't always take whenever I say sit as completely sit. That means they're going to have a tough matchup, and you should consider what you're doing there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. My my 1 quarterback for this week, and this one was a little tough. I went with Matthew Stafford, okay? Because Matthew Stafford's going to be going up against Drew Brees, and it's basically going to be a battle of the teams with a strong pass game and a mediocre run game. Matt Stafford and Drew Brees are both going to rack up some points going against the Saints secondary that really hasn't improved for, I don't even know how many years it's been since they've improved. But I expect a high-scoring game from both of them. But with the Lions secondary having a little bit more power, I would love to see Matthew Stafford get some good points. You got any thoughts there, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to answer your question about when the last time the Saints Defense was good. Their secondary, the answer's never. Even their Super Bowl, seriously, even in their Super Bowl run, their defense wasn't that good. They just forced a lot of turnovers because Drew Brees and Sean Payton were putting a clinic on that year as far as offensive production.
Yeah.
But that defense is pretty much the same. They don't have much of a pass rush. They're going to give up a ton of points. Matt Stafford is a very safe start. I actually have him on my personal fantasy team, but I have him on the bench right now for Tom Brady. Now, what would you do in that situation?
Well, Tom Brady's going against the Jets. I think there's no doubt that I would want Tom Brady in that game instead. I didn't include Tom Brady versus the Jets because if you are a fantasy owner and you're not starting Tom Brady versus the Jets, then you should quit fantasy. That's what I have to say about that.
Exactly.
So, while Steve couldn't make the article this week, I have all of his picks this week. So I'm also going to go ahead and list off what he had. I'm going to try to do it quick. But he had Kirk Cousins this week, and that's sad for a lot of 49ers fans to hear. But you also need to accept the reality that our secondary is absolutely terrible, and Kirk Cousins has a good chance at passing all over that. Mike?
All right. So I like the Kirk Cousins pick, but there's a couple of things that people need to know.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Navarro Bowman's not there anymore, and I know everyone knows that already. I think the 49ers play a lot of big nickel, big dime, big nickel. I think they're going to have one linebacker out there a lot of the time. And if you stop and think about, I know our secondary has been very porous, but if you really, really think about it, if we got Eric Reed back, we have Jimmy Ward out there now. We're going to have Reuben Foster out there now. These guys are going to be bringing a lot of pressure, and they're going to be ball hogs. Jaquiski Tart. These guys are top of the line in the NFL, not just 49ers. So it's a risky start. I know it seems like on paper, the 49ers suck. They don't have any wins, but the 49ers have been competitive in every game, even that Panthers game until like late in the fourth quarter when the game got out of hand. And I think that the 49ers are going to be a little bit tougher than what people are going to give them credit for. Kirk Cousins is going to have to watch out.
I totally agree with you there, man. I think whenever we get that defense all back together, it's gonna be a threat there, and I can't wait for that game. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the running back section, and I'm gonna go to the exact same game we just talked about, and I'm gonna go with running back Chris Thompson because I don't know if you've checked any fantasy talks this week, but Perrine, that other running back in Washington. Everybody's been talking about him, and I feel like people forgot who Chris Thompson is and what he's done for the past few weeks. Because, in my opinion, and I've seen this all over Twitter from a few experts, he's the only cemented job in this backfield that I've seen. Rob Kelly is expected to not be healthy, which is why Perrine has been rising in fantasy value. But healthy or not, Chris Thompson has been the best running back on this team as far as fantasy-wise. And while he's been a primarily pass-catching running back, he's probably going to torch up this 49ers defense. Even when we get all our players back, and I think we'll be a lot better with those players back, Chris Thompson will probably be pretty good, and I expect at least one touchdown from him.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one touchdown, Chris Thompson has been vastly disrespected in fantasy leagues. I don't understand how. I don't understand why. That guy is going to get some points, going to get some catches, especially if you're in a PPR. That is a guy that you want to start. But I will say this. As far as rushing production, I don't think it's going to be as good. I know I just said it, and I'm a 49ers fan and everything, but guys, Eric Reed playing in the box is a monster against the run, and Reuben Foster is freaking phenomenal. I mean, I think the Niners are going to give them a really big problem against the run this week. So Dylan, man, I don't know if he's not getting it in the air. I don't know, man. I think it's going to be a lot of small plays. I don't see anything big getting past these guys this week.
Yeah, and that's my point. I think he's definitely going to get it in the air. And for Steve's first running back, he went with C.J. Anderson going against the absolute mess of a Giants right now. And that makes sense. The Giants can't do anything right. I thought they were going to be a great team this year. But even before they had all those injuries, they suck. I mean, that's it. They suck.
Yeah, I love the C.J. Anderson pick for one reason. I think the the Giants, because they lost so many wide receivers, I think there's going to be a lot of whiffs, a lot of turnovers, some bobbled balls that are going to be intercepted. I can see a defensive touchdown or two for Denver's defense, and so I think it's going to force the Broncos to actually run the ball. They're going to play safe, and so C.J. Anderson, if the Broncos can get a touchdown or two on defense, I think that's going to give them a nice little lead, and they're going to run the ball and play safe, and Anderson's just going to run roughshod on those guys.
Definitely. All right, for my second wide receiver or running back, for this week, I just went with a pass catching running back, and I'm going to go with another one, and his name is Alvin Kamara. Okay, another pass catching back is in this list for me, and I usually don't go for pass catching backs. I wasn't even huge on Ty Montgomery, but this backfield going into the preseason was full of questions, and now it seems like Alvin Kamara has answered all of those questions. He is the future back for New Orleans. And even with Adrian Peterson gone, it wasn't even that close of a competition. Even now, he's just going to get even more carries. Like I said with the Matthew Stafford pick, it's going to be a high-scoring game, I think. And Kamara should definitely see a lot of that. Michael Thomas will obviously get a lot of catches. Willie Snead will probably get a lot too. But I can see Alvin Kamara getting a lot of catches there. And honestly, even some pretty good rushing yards there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And another guy that I thought about from the same team, believe it or not, is Mark Ingram.
Oh man,
I think. Well,
I'm going to hit on him later. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, if he's available in fantasy leagues, I think that he should be somebody that you guys grab because, like you said, Adrian Peterson's there, and Adrian Peterson was getting 6 or 7 carries, touches a game anyway. But at some point, Kamara's going to have to come out. It's going to be Ingram time, and I think that it's going to be a safe pick. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those backs. Again, especially if you're in a PPR. Drew Brees and that Saints offense, they don't really like handing the ball off. They'd rather have Drew Brees throw a 1-yard pass and let the running backs do their thing in space. So.
All right, yeah, and with Steve's second running back, he went with Elijah McGuire. He's the Jets rookie running back. With Powell and Forte both dealing with some injury, you got to have someone to carry the ball. And with New England's kind of terrible defense, he's pretty high on Elijah McGuire. I can't speak exactly for Steve, but I'm assuming that's exactly why he picked him. I loved Bilal Powell last week just because I thought he would get a lot of the carries, but with the injury he got in last week, it does look like Elijah McGuire could come in. Matt Forte is also starting to heal for that injury, so I would definitely check the injury reports right before the game just to make sure on that pick.
I love Steve's Elijah McGuire pick. That, like you said, that New England defense is garbage, and the best way to win against New England is to keep Tom Brady on the sideline. You do that with the running backs. So I 100% love that. If you guys have him, if he's available, which I doubt, but if he's available, you guys go and grab him right away.
For sure. All right, well, that finishes up with running backs, and we're going to go right into wide receiver. For my first wide receiver, I went with Adam Thielen, and I'm super excited about this pick. Stephon Diggs is out this week, and the poor Vikings have to go to their wide receiver too. But lucky for the Vikings, their wide receiver too happens to also, right beside Stephon Diggs, be one of the best wide receivers in the league as of right now. And not only that, but they're meeting a Green Bay defense, and Thielen should be the star of the show. And if, in case that doesn't convince you enough, last year when Thielen went to the Packers, he had 12 catches for 202 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if that doesn't convince you, then I don't know what can. The Green Bay Packers defense is beat up. I think Thielen will have a game.
It's interesting. I'm actually who's the quarterback over there in Minnesota right now? That's what's giving me pause about that.
That does give you pause. I understand that for sure. Sam Bradford, I believe, was ruled out for that game. So it will be Case Keenum. And that does give you the pause. I completely understand because last time it was with Sam Bradford. But honestly, I've liked what I've seen from Case Keenum. He's looked pretty good. he's looked like the best quarterback on that roster, honestly.
Those are big words.
Well, I mean, Sam Bradford's looked like trash other than week 1 because, I mean, he's only played 2 weeks, but Teddy Bridgewater's hurt. It's not that hard to be the best quarterback on that roster whenever nobody can play. So, I mean, Case Keenum, I like him a lot this week. I think he can make stuff happen. I mean, have you seen how many injuries Green Bay has sustained?
They're decimated right now. You're absolutely right. So I get it. I get it. It gives me a little bit of pause, but I completely understand it. So I'm with it, man.
All right, sweet. All right, and then going to Steve's first wide receiver, he went with my man Golden Tate. That goes right hand in hand with my Matthew Stafford pick. He put a little bit of information in there. He said the Saints are giving up over 250 passing yards per game, which goes right there with what I said about the Saints defense. And the Lions love to throw the football, obviously. And that's pretty much it. In week 1, he put up big numbers. Golden Tate should have another big game. There's not really any other huge wide receiver threats. That's what the Lions have been really good about this year. They spread the ball out a lot. So, I mean, Marvin Jones could have a big game, but he's not one of those guys you necessarily want to start. But definitely, I think Golden Tate is going to have one of those big point-scoring games. Somebody has to score the touchdowns. So, I mean, why not Golden Tate?
Yeah, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Sorry, I heard the feedback. But yeah, it makes feedback. I have no reason to say no.
Perfect. All right, my second wide receiver for the week, I'm really excited to tell about this one, is Keenan Allen. I've been so high on Keenan Allen for like years now, man. I drafted him last year, and it broke my heart whenever he had that season-ending injury. It hurt me a lot, but I fell for it again. I drafted Keenan Allen again. I was willing to take that risk because I love Keenan Allen. And not only do I love Keenan Allen, but he received a super high compliment from none other than a corner in the Broncos defense. Chris Harris Jr. said he was the best wide receiver he's seen this year. One of the best corners in the league said he was the best wide receiver he's seen this year. That is a compliment. So after that, I can also say when he's finally healthy, Allen has been tearing it up in this league. And that isn't going to be changing against a Raiders team that can't stop anything.
Yeah, very safe pick right there. I can see him easily with 7-8 receptions if you're in a PPR league. Keenan Allen is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL, mainly because of his injury history. Because when he's out there, that man produces like nobody else.
For sure. I love Keenan Allen. So with his second pick, Steve went with Larry Fitzgerald, and he said Old Man Fitz is making the list. They're playing Tampa Bay, who hasn't been that good in the past defense. He's still getting all the targets. Carson Palmer's throwing it to him. He's definitely Palmer's favorite wide receiver, and why wouldn't he be? Because he's always been there. And Steve said he should at least be able to get one touchdown Sunday. And I agree. I think if the Cardinals even want to stay relevant in that game, they're going to have to score a touchdown. And there's not really anybody else on that team to score a touchdown other than Larry.
Exactly. Hashtag feed fit. What's going to happen is Carson Palmer's offensive line is hot butter right now. People are going to run through it, and he's still going to pass the ball because that's what the like to do. It kind of going to date with the guys, the two Brown brothers to do on the outside. And so if you're not checking it down to a running back, which they haven't really been able to do, you're going to throw it to your slot guy, your tight end, and the slot guy is Fitzgerald. So it's a safe pick, I think.
For sure. And I want to take a break from the action real quick. I just pulled up the live chat one more time, and we have a few questions on there. One of them says, are you going to do a game preview? Nothing to do with fantasy, but I'm throwing it over to Mike because he knows if we're doing a game preview or not.
All right, so this was a surprise. But we are going to do a game preview. I am actually leaving my house at 6 in the morning, so I can go actually going to the Redskins game. So I will be there. I'm going to be bringing you guys a lot of live videos from the tailgate party. I'm going to be bringing you guys live video from the game, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys are definitely going to get a game preview. I plan on meeting up with some people out there, someone from Twitter, and we're going to sit down and do a face-to-face game preview like we've been doing. Our Behind Enemy Line segment is going to be done live instead of pre-recorded, and we're going to break everything down, but you guys are going to have to get it on game day morning, so be on the lookout for that, guys.
Nice. And then we have another one that says, talk about Matt Breida's fantasy outlook. All right, Danny, don't worry. We are getting to Matt Breida. Do not worry. It will be later in the podcast, but we'll get there for sure. All right. So with the wide receivers out of the way, we are going to the tight end position. And last week, whenever I was going through this, I told you guys I wanted to pick Cameron Brate so bad. I was so upset that he played on that Thursday game and I didn't get to get to him in time. But I'm going with Cameron Brate again. He had the great game last week, and he's going up against the Cardinals defense that has lost linebackers like crazy. And Patrick Peterson, as good of a corner as he is, he can only cover one guy at a time, and he'll have his hands full with Mike Evans. So at the same time, you can expect Deshaun Jackson to have a decent game. He might have some problems with Tyrann Mathieu, but once you get rid of Patrick Peterson on Mike Evans, Tyrann Mathieu on Deshaun Jackson, who is covering Cameron Brate? Honestly, he's good for at least one touchdown in this game. I guarantee that.
I guarantee. Big word. I hope you're right, man. I have no other comments. I hope you're right.
All right, for Steve's tight end this week, he went with Ryan Griffin on the Texans, and I can definitely see that. They're going against the Browns, which are they're competing against the 49ers for the joke of the NFL right now. I think the 49ers are doing better than the Browns just because at least we stay competitive in games. So the Texans, they've had tight end problems, but in every game this season, a tight end has scored a touchdown. So why is that going to stop now? Deshaun Watson's been having an absolute season, man. He's been looking great. It took him a few games to get into it, but once he got into it, he is there to play. So I see no reason why Ryan Griffin isn't somebody that can catch a touchdown pass this week. I'm not really sure what happened to Mike, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go to the defense now. We actually hit on a little bit of this specific defense this week earlier in this podcast when we talked about it, but I went with the Denver Broncos. Wait. Oh.
I'm sorry. I was here the whole time. I'm sorry. I have a tight end that I want to suggest.
Oh. All right, let's do it.
Austin Seferian-Jenkins.
Yes. All right.
He's got a favorable matchup this week, a very favorable matchup. And again, like I was saying before, checkdowns are going to be a big thing. Keep those guys off of the field. And you're going to go to your tight ends. You're going to go to your slot guys and your wide receivers. I think he has a very favorable matchup. He's back. He's healthy. I don't see any reason not to start Austin Seferian-Jenkins this week.
I love Jenkins this week. He's a big guy to play this week. All right. We are going to get to the defense spot now. And obviously this is a team that you pretty much are going to start every week. But just because of their matchup, I'm going to list it here anyway. It's the Broncos. They're one of the best defenses in the league, arguably the best. But that argument isn't for here. There's literally nothing threatening this team. As they go against the Giants, there's nobody that they really need to worry about. The biggest problem for this Broncos defense is which wide receiver to actually worry about guarding. So I see no reason that the Broncos shouldn't be the team to start at your defense.
Here's one reason to pause. Just one. And it's not a good one, but it's a reason to pause. NFL and good defenses key on studying habits of their opponents. They can't study any of these Giants wide receivers because they've never seen them before.
That's actually a really good point.
I think that if there's a reason to pause, that's going to be it. But you got to trust your gut. If you have them going up against this Giants team, you got to put them in because Eli's going to throw picks no matter what. I don't care if he had all his guys in there or not. He's going to throw picks. He's going to take sacks. They're going to stop the run. I mean, you still got to start them. But the reason to pause is because they don't know the tendencies of these wide receivers, and they have no idea what the game plan is going to look like this week.
Yeah. All right. So for Steve's start on the defense, he went with the Chiefs because the Chiefs have been light out this season. They are on another level when they play at home. They got the Steelers this week, and the Steelers have just not been great on the road. That Steelers offense, it's kind of hit or miss for each player. Sometimes they go off, sometimes they don't. Usually when one player goes off, the other doesn't. So, I mean, we'll see if Kansas City can contain them. Steve says he doesn't see anything changing this week in Kansas City. So
I disagree so much.
Oh, don't worry. Hang on. Before you go into that, just wait till we get to the starts, and we will go all at it. Don't worry.
All right.
Do not worry. Okay. Well, that's going to move us on into the sit section. For my first sit this week, I went with the man Jared Goff. Okay, I love Jared Goff coming in this year. I had a good feeling about him with Sean McVay coming in this year. But this week, he's going to go against a Rams defense, which is in competition with the Broncos to be the most elite defense in the NFL.
Jared Goff isn't going against the Rams defense.
I meant the Jaguars defense. My bad. They are they're going against one of the best defenses in the NFL. I think the Broncos edge it out just a little bit on the best defense just because of Von Miller, but that corner duo is very deadly with Jalen Ramsey and AJ Bouye. Honestly, I just wanted to point out 2 years ago, if we watched a Rams-Jaguars game, it would pretty much be a Thursday night football match that nobody watched because nobody would have cared about that. But this game is going to be really interesting this year. I'm super excited for it. But the only problem is I'm not excited to see Jared Goff try to throw against those two elite corners who basically made Ben Roethlisberger consider retiring after last week.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. You got to see that guy, especially after you watch how he struggled against Seattle. And Jaguars run the same style defense. Jaguars were ranked 6th last year in overall defense, and they're probably even better this year with another year under the belt. Listen, man, you got to stay away from anybody on the Rams, even the running backs.
For sure. Don't worry, we're getting to that soon here too. For Steve's quarterback this week, he went with a guy that we actually just hit on a little bit. I think. I got to find it. Sorry. His quarterback to sit this week is Ben Roethlisberger. And I love how he started his explanation. He said, I can't even begin to explain what is wrong with Big Ben. He just hasn't had a good season. And I know I expected that. He's getting really old, but Steve goes in and he says he thinks age catching up to him, but something just isn't right. The Steelers are struggling on the road, and against that Chiefs defense, he's not completely confident. Mike doesn't seem happy with that. Let's hear it.
You told me I can't talk about it yet, but I disagree again. I completely disagree. Can I just say this? The Chiefs
go for it.
Are undefeated. They're the only undefeated team in the NFL, but they are giving up points, man. You guys can't ignore that. The Chiefs are giving up points. It's not one-sided 35-3 games. They're giving up a lot of points. Ben Roethlisberger is going through it. If you checked out mentally, you're not going to be there. Ben says that he's talked to family, that he's feeling a little bit better and things like that, and now he's feeling rejuvenated and revived. Steelers usually bounce back after a really bad, embarrassing loss. Guys, man, listen. Ben Roethlisberger might not be as bad as what you guys are saying. That's all I'm saying.
I understand. I'd be hesitant to sit Ben Roethlisberger, but I also wouldn't have him in my league because I don't like Steelers at all. So I would have never drafted him. But my first sorry, not there yet. My first running back for the week, I decided to sit was Jai. And Jai has had a tough – he's been tough to deal with this year. No, from a fantasy owner that has him, it's been tough to deal with him. But we have to give him a break because the guy that was controlling his offensive line was literally on cocaine, as we found out. So, I mean, we have to put a little slight pause there. He should be able to come around eventually. I mean, I don't think it'll be this week, though. That's why he's on my sit list. He just needs a little bit of time to get back into it. I mean, they've got to get somebody in there to work with that offensive line. It's not a awful offensive line. I like that offensive line if they can pull it all together, but just not this week.
Refresh my memory. Who are they playing against this week?
They're playing the Falcons, who haven't been great on run defense, but still.
Okay. I mean, I guess I can see it.
It's a favorable matchup if Jai had been playing like the Jai we expected to see. He just hasn't. I'm not saying sit him because of his matchup. I'm saying sit him because he hasn't proven anything since week 1.
I like that. That's a good reason. I like that. It's a good reason.
Okay. All right. And with Steve's first sit for the running back position, this one was interesting for me. I was a little hesitant to see it, but I can understand why he said it. He said Todd Gurley. Gurley's been one of the best fantasy backs this season, but the schedule is getting harder. He's facing that Jacksonville defense, and teams just can't pass on him. So, I mean, obviously you're going to expect Calais Campbell and the rest of that Jaguars defense to be planning to try to stop Todd Gurley. So, I mean, it'll be an interesting game. Maybe they can stop Todd Gurley. Maybe they can't.
Yeah, it's a sit. Like I said, I'm not touching anybody in the range this week. So I like that. It's a good sit.
All right, for sure. And for my next sit, I went with I don't see my other running back on here. So it looks like we're just gonna move on to wide receiver.
Wait, I gotta sit.
I don't know where it went. Oh, he's got to sit. Let's hear it.
Gotta sit. My sit is going to be Carlos Hyde. Now.
Oh, that was coming up here in a few seconds. Don't worry.
All right, I'll stop.
No, you can go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so the reason I'm sitting Carlos Hyde, he's clearly in the doghouse with running back coach Bobby Turner. He fumbled the ball. Yeah, we recovered it, but right after that, he missed the blitz. And we didn't see Carlos Hyde until 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter after that. And I think the 49ers really like what they saw from Matt Breida. I can see Carlos Hyde carries total coming down. And then you also have the rumors floating around Twitter today saying that Carlos Hyde is on the trade block. Although I don't believe those rumors, it doesn't mean that El Guapo is not following the Twitter feed and seeing what people are saying about him. And so if he is indeed doing that, again, like we talked about with Ben Roethlisberger, you're checked out mentally, it's going to show up on the field. And I think that it's going to be a rough game for Carlos Hyde. He's going to have to do a lot of taking of emotions. And if he can't do it, it's not going to look good for him, especially going up against a very good defensive line coached by Jim Tom Sula. It's going to be a tough one for Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, for sure. And just to touch on anything that he may not have hit that Steve definitely hit, he definitely wanted to say, hate to break the hearts of Niners fans, but Hyde is a sit this week. Just like with Gurley, the West Coast team traveling to the East is never good. Hyde didn't impress last week, carrying the ball 8 times for only 11 yards, and Matt Breida does seem to be taking a lot of snaps. We just got Steve in there, so I'm going to let him take over immediately on anything he has to say about Carlos Hyde.
What's going on, fellas? Sorry, I had a little bit of a family thing. So got that taken care of.
No worries,
what's
man.
going on? Hey, what's going on?
What's up, Mike? Let me pull up the sits here.
So, yeah, we just got to the second running back, and you were right there with Carlos Hyde's. Mike just talked about his sits on Carlos Hyde, and I wanted to hear what you had to say.
All right, so I am definitely going to sit Carlos Hyde this week. As we've seen, it looks like this morning he is possibly on the trade block. I don't know if that's if he's going to get a lot of carries. They may show him off to but I'm sitting in this week. They're traveling east to Washington. Breida's getting in his playing time. I'm definitely sitting him this week.
Yeah, and I see exactly what you're saying. That Washington defense has been playing pretty well. So, I mean, I would be a little scared to do it too. So we're going to go ahead and move to the wide receivers real quick. My first wide receiver, I'm just going to try to speed it up a little bit here. I got some friends over. I'm just trying to make sure I don't neglect them too long. We got Jordy Nelson in here. I know he's probably one of those early picks, which means, like I said at the beginning of this video, Jordy Nelson is only sit if you have a better matchup. Okay, my problem with Jordy Nelson is it seems like every other game he seems to be out of the lineup for some reason, just because nobody really knows why. He just sits over there for a while, and then after the game you hear he had some sort of injury or something like that. But not only is he going to be dealing with that, but they're playing the Vikings. And the Vikings defense, I say every week, Xavier Rhodes is a challenge to go up against. So, I mean, you can only assume that Xavier Rhodes is going to be going up against Jordy Nelson. So, I mean, I'm a little scared to see what happens with Jordy this week.
I just want to chime in on that. I 100% agree with you. So I just want to talk about this little fantasy trade that I pulled off this week. I traded Ezekiel Elliott and Carlos Hyde for Antonio Brown and Doug Martin. And then after I did that, because I got Antonio Brown, I traded Jordy Nelson straight up for LaShawn McCoy. I got rid of Jordy Nelson so quick, man. And this week he was going to be on my bench regardless. So I 110% agree with you on that, man. He's not a safe start this week.
All right, Steve, if you want to go ahead and hit your first wide receiver on the sit list this week.
All right, I am sitting Demaryius Thomas. He's been pretty solid this year. His last game before his bye, he only had one catch for 11 yards. But I think Denver's going to roll over the Giants here. I think it's going to be basically over by halftime. It's going to be a lot of handoffs. There's no reason for Denver to throw the ball, really. So Demaryius Thomas, you got to sit. He may have an okay first half, but when you're getting no second half production, it's going to be hard to start him this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's exactly what I said earlier on when you said start C.J. Anderson for those same exact reasons. The Giants aren't going to give them any reason to pass the ball much, and it's just going to be running the ball, run time off the clock, and end the game quickly. You're on mute, D.
My bad, guys. So for my second wide receiver to sit this week, I got Jarvis Landry, okay? And I love Jarvis. I love a lot of the wide receivers in Miami, but it's looking like Devontae Parker is going to be out this week, which makes it significantly easier for the Falcons to try to keep down on Jarvis Landry. And plus, Jay Cutler, he's not good. That didn't change when he changed teams. He's just not good, okay? That whole Dolphins team is just not good. So I don't expect Jarvis Landry to have a monstrous game. Again, if you have more favorable matchups, that's the only reason I would sit him. But Jarvis Landry shouldn't have a monster game, in my opinion.
I like it. I agree with that.
All right, you want to go ahead and hit your second receiver, Steve?
Yeah. My second receiver, he's sitting on the 6 this week, second time in a row. Martavis Bryant. Been a pretty big disappointment. I was really high on Bryant at the beginning of the season. I thought with him back, it's an extra weapon for Ben, and they haven't really been connected. He's had one good game, but other than that, he's basically been unstartable. Kansas City gives up a lot of receiving yards to the second wide receiver, but I think that's Juju's spot. Juju looks a lot better. He's playing better, in my opinion. There was talk earlier this week that possibly Bryant taking a back seat when Eli Rogers comes back. I'm sitting him this week. I had Ben as a sit, and I could see Bryant being a sit too. His favorite receiver is Antonio Brown, and that's where he's going to look.
Yeah, I've always had this saying for the Steelers offense, and I've lived by this for years. Not years, for a while now. Unless they have an 84 on their back, I don't start a Steelers wide receiver because none of them are going to catch anything compared to Antonio Brown.
Yeah, and like you said, the Steelers don't usually spread the ball around. It's one guy killing team. They find the mismatch and they just stick with it and they continue to drill at it and drill at it and drill at it. And we haven't seen much from Martavis Bryant. I don't know if it's rhythm and all that stuff or what, but he's got to get back into it. Until he does, you got to park him. I mean, if you have him on your fantasy team, he should be benched. And then there's going to be a game where he turns it around and then you're going to be like, damn, I should have started him this week. But you got to go better safe than sorry.
All right, so for the tight end position, for my sit this week, I went with Evan Ingram. We talked a little bit about this Broncos-Giants matchup earlier, and I think it was just 2 weeks ago or something like that I was saying Evan Ingram's a must-start because he's been one of the most consistent tight ends in the league. But now everybody on the Giants is hurt, and I also said earlier that the Broncos would have to decide which absolutely terrible player they needed to cover. Evan Ingram's the only not terrible player left on this team to catch the ball. So you can expect the Broncos to game plan to try and shut him down. So I wouldn't see him getting much this week.
I don't agree with that at all. Yeah,
all right,
listen,
let me hear it.
You know, just like what Steve said, what we were talking about earlier with the game being out of hand early, the Giants are going to have to pass the ball to play catch up. And if that's what they're going to do, Eli's going to have to go to whoever he has the best chemistry with. And unfortunately, it's going to have to be that tight end. It might be dink and dunk, but it's going to be that tight end. They don't have any good running backs. All their wide receivers are injured. If there's one reliable person on that roster, Eli's going to throw the ball 40 times this game. He might only complete 27 of them, but he's got to throw the ball 40 times this game. Someone's got to catch 12 of them. And I say, why not him? Why not Evan Ingram? He's the only constant that's there right now.
Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. I'm just really scared to start anybody against the Denver Broncos defense. And before I send it over to Steve, I just want to let everybody know, anybody that's watching, feel free. I've got the live chat pulled up. If you have any questions about your fantasy lineup this week, send them through there. We will be glad to answer you. You're getting 3 opinions here. So, I mean, one of them's got to be right. So I'll send it over to Steve to start with his tight end.
All right, the tight end I chose this week was Kyle Rudolph. I don't know how I'm feeling about that now that they officially just Stephon Diggs out. Kind of wrote this up beforehand. So he's been a disappointment. He's only looked good with Bradford, really. Case Keenum's not really looking at him. He's got the good receivers on the outside in Diggs and Thielen. And they're kind of forgetting about Rudolph. Had a decent game Monday night. But, I mean, he's playing against the Bears, and I believe, if I could recall, it was like a lucky catch for that touchdown. But now with Diggs out, they could be looking his way a little more. So he might be a start if you need him, but if you got a better option, I look a different way.
I definitely agree with you there, just because ever since Case Keenum has been a starter for that quarterback spot, it's like Kyle Rudolph doesn't even exist. Even with Sam Bradford, Rudolph was really only a start for a touchdown. But, I mean, Kyle Rudolph has been non-existent in this Vikings offense so far.
I think that happens for a reason. You have a backup quarterback come in. He feels like he kind of has to prove himself, and you don't want to take the easy shots, so you want to prove that you can throw it deep and things like that. Or maybe it's because Kyle Rudolph just isn't 100%. I don't know, but Kyle Rudolph has been non-existent, and it's a very good sit this week. I like it.
All right, and then we're getting into one of the last spots this week, and we're going defense. I'm excited because I've told King Gab that he had to wait until this moment to talk about this matchup. But I'm going with the Steelers defense to sit this week. Yes, they're the third-ranked defense in the league in fantasy-wise, but they're going against this only undefeated team. Is this the week that the Chiefs lose? I'm not going to answer because I'm not bold enough to predict that on here. But I do know Kansas City is a dynamic offense, and that should cause problems for the Steelers. So I don't want them in my lineup this week.
All right. So I'm gonna jump in real quick. I completely agree with you. Right now, Alex Smith is playing the way I just described Case Keenum. He's playing like a backup guy who's trying to prove that he can throw the deep pass and things like that. Alex Smith is by far having the best season I've ever seen him have before. And for the first time in his career, he's actually got a deep ball. He is killing it right now. He's got the explosive plays. He's extremely accurate. Alex Smith is going to torch that secondary, man. And so you got to sit him. It's a very, very good call right there, Dylan. Very good call.
All right, this week my defense I'm choosing to sit is the Rams. The Rams are traveling to the East Coast. It's a tough play for a West Coast team to travel east in the first place, but the Rams have been terrible against the run, and we've seen what Fournette did last week. Fournette's been a monster this whole season. Their pass game's not that great, but the Rams' defense is far worse against the run, I think. I don't know if it's that Wade Phillips thing. They were pretty good last year with Wade Phillips moving over, switching to the 3-4. Their run defense just isn't there. Fournette should have a big day. I'm not playing the Rams this week. I think Jacksonville wins this one easy against St. Louis or Los Angeles now.
That's interesting. I don't have a lot of feedback for that. I'm still so iffy and hesitant about Jacksonville's offense. I'm completely bought in on their defense, but their offense gives me a lot of pause. But I could see exactly where you're.
What I love about Jacksonville's offense is they figured it out. Okay, I loved the Leonard Fournette pick. When they got Leonard Fournette, they basically said, we're going to Cowboys this, and we're just going to try to get to where our quarterback doesn't have to throw that much. Okay, in last week's matchup, Blake Bortles only had to throw for 95 yards and a touchdown, I believe. Meanwhile, Leonard Fournette just torched him. Okay, that's all they're doing. They're just handing the ball off to Leonard Fournette, and whenever that stops working, they'll throw a little dinky pass. That way, Leonard Fournette gets more open. I love what Jacksonville has started to pull together on this offense. So I can kind of see exactly what you're saying, man.
Yeah, don't forget, their defense is legit. They should hold down Los Angeles.
For sure.
Easy.
It's a legit defense. All right. Well, that brings us to the last segment. Like I said, feel free to send us any fantasy questions you have. I still got the live chat pulled up right here. Feel free to send it over to me. But we're going over to the free agent pickups. So this is the last part of our podcast tonight. And I'll start it off. And my free agent pickup this week is Mike Wallace. Okay, I love Mike Wallace. I love him, man. And I hate Ravens. That's what's weird. I hate the Ravens. But Mike Wallace is only owned in 60% of leagues. 60. Okay, 60. Mike Wallace I'll say it. Mike Wallace won me a championship last year in fantasy. Okay, he scored a touchdown every single week. I loved Mike Wallace. I drafted him, and then he sucked. Okay, he was absolutely awful. He was getting like 0.1 points. I was so mad. I hated Mike Wallace for the longest time. But what I saw from the Ravens game last week is Joe Flacco, for some reason, decided to start trusting Mike Wallace again. And I think that's going to continue. I love Mike Wallace going on. I think that they finally built that connection. And if I'm right, and I was right last week, by the way, I said pick up Will Fuller because they're starting to get that connection there. And guess what? Will Fuller's going off again. So I'm going to try my luck. I'm going to go for this wide receiver this week. I'm going with Mike Wallace. I think that connection is finally established for the year, and I think it's a touchdown a week for the rest of the year.
Who are they playing against?
Who are the Ravens playing against? I looked it up. Can't quite remember right now. Sorry.
I only ask. I like your logic, and like you said, once Flacco wakes up, he usually goes on a run. So the logic is impeccable. It makes plenty of sense. But I'm just wondering about the matchup. That's Mike Wallace, the speed demon. Joe Flacco is known for his deep ball. So if he can, get that going, because that's what Mike Wallace's one trick is. It's going to be dangerous, man. He's going to be exactly what the 49ers wanted. He's good one to be. I like it.
All right, the Ravens are playing the Bears this week. So, I mean, I like that Bears defense, but it's not good. It's had a lot of injury problems. Without those injuries, it's a good defense, but you've also got to look at the offense. A quarterback's going to be starting his second game of his career in the NFL, and I love Mitchell Trubisky, but it's his second game of the year. He's going to have some problems, which means that Ravens offense could see the field a lot more than usual. All right, Steve, you got a free agent for us?
All right, my free agent, I am picking up if he's available. You better pick up Matt Breida and get him now if you haven't picked him up yet. I might have missed something earlier because Mike's cracking up over there.
But I knew that was going to be Mike's pick. I knew it.
I'm definitely getting him. This was before the whole Carlos Hyde news. It's that time of year where you want to pick up a handcuff if you got a star running back. You've seen Breida start to take over carries from Hyde a bit last week. Hyde, they say he was hurt. I don't think he was hurt. I think he was benched. Hyde didn't play that great last week. So now with these trade rumors going on, if he does get traded, I mean, that plugs Breida right into a starting running back role. So if you're definitely hurting for running back, add him now, even if you don't have Carlos Hyde. Get him in your lineup. If Hyde gets moved, boom, you got an instant starter. We know Shanahan likes to run the ball. So get him in. If he doesn't pan out in a week or two and Carlos Hyde stays past the trade deadline, you can cut him if you don't own Carlos Hyde, but I'd still add him to your roster.
All right, so here's my logic with this. And Breida was not my sleeper, just so you know. But I think that people are forgetting that Kyle Shanahan loves multiple back systems. I do not believe that Carlos Hyde is on the trading block. What I do believe is that he's in the doghouse with Bobby Turner. And if he didn't have a really good week of practice, I could see Matt Breida getting more of the reps, and that's reason enough to add him and just keep him there, like you said, handcuff him. I had Carlos Hyde, and I traded him away just this week, but that's a really, really good reason to. I don't think he's going to get traded away. I think the Niners are going to keep him at least until the end of the season, and then just let him walk in free agency, though. Did you want to say anything about that, Dylan, before I give my ad?
I mean, I picked up Breida in a few leagues just because, you never know what's going to happen. I love Carlos Hyde immensely more than Matt Breida. I've never been on the Breida train. It's going to take a while for me to get on the Breida train, even if he is the starting back. I think Carlos Hyde is definitely the better back there. But, I mean, if he's going to be getting the most carries, then it may be time to look into the tickets for the Breida train.
Yep, I agree. Like Mike said, he may not be on the trade block. I'm sure everybody's calling the Niners right now, being on 5 to see who's available. So those trade rumors going on, could be nothing. Like we said, I don't think Hyde is a Shanahan guy. We heard it before the season where they were talking about getting rid of Hyde. And Hyde looked great in the preseason, played his way into the starting role. I think somehow if they can kind of push Hyde to the side and get Breida in, especially later in the year when they're not playing for anything, they're going to want to get their guy in and see what he can do. That way they need to decide if they're going to draft a running back, if it's Breida going to be the guy. They're going to look harder at Joe Williams. So I could see later in the year, if Hyde's still around, Breida's going to get a bulk of the carries.
Yeah, I'm just going to counter that. Again, Shanahan loves two backs. I agree with everything that you're saying, but the other option of benching Carlos Hyde is Raheem Mostert, and Raheem Mostert is nowhere near the level of Carlos Hyde. I just don't see it happening. But, I mean, I get it, though. I completely get it. You want to add him, and by the way, I mean, I hate to say this about an NFL player, but it's about time for Carlos Hyde to get a little nick or an injury, and you know, the 49ers aren't going to go out and grab somebody off of a practice squad somewhere, I don't think. So I think with as intricate as Kyle Shanahan's offense is, going to have to be someone from in-house. And I don't know who they have behind Breida at running back because Joe Williams is on IR, not designated to return either. So I think Carlos Hyde is going to be safe. You guys cool if I go ahead and give my sleeper or my ad this week?
Oh, of course.
Get it, Mike.
All right.
Get it, Mike.
So here it is, guys. My ad for this week is actually defense. All right, it's going to be the Detroit Lions. I know that they're going up against the Saints, but this is what I want to say. The Saints always throw interceptions, okay? The Saints don't have problems fumbling. If you look at the Detroit Lions defense for the first 3 weeks, they had a touchdown, okay? If you look at every week except last week, they had either 3 interceptions or 3 fumble recoveries, okay? I don't think Drew Brees cares about throwing interceptions. I don't think that offense is going to – I think the offense is going to put up points, but I think that it's going to be countered by turnovers, fumble recoveries, and potentially a pick six, man. Just keep your eye on that Detroit Lions defense. Don't let last week fool you. Last week was the anomaly. That's the outlier. If you look at everything that they've done, like I said, either 3 interceptions or 3 fumble recoveries and a touchdown for the first 3 weeks of the season, that Detroit Lions defense is for real. That's my ad for this week.
And I totally agree with you there, man. That's the main reason I chose Matthew Stafford over Drew Brees as the starter this week. Drew Brees has always been kind of that guy that's like, yeah, he's going to throw a lot of yards, but at the same time, he might throw an interception every here and there. So I see what you're saying. And that's actually the end of what we had planned. But my man, Mike, he had a question that he told me he was going to ask before we even started this show. He said he wanted to talk about this New York Giants offense and who is the sleeper there. So I'm going to throw it over to him real quick.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask the question because I don't have the question. Like I said earlier in the show, I think that Denver is going to jump out to an early lead and going to force the Giants offense to have to make passes. And if that's the case, other than Evan Ingram, someone's going to have to catch passes. Like I said, I could see Eli Manning going 27 for 40, 200 to 300 or 250 to 350 yards, maybe a touchdown or 2, but it's not going to be enough to win that game. So who is going to be the wide receiver to grab from that offense, one of these unknown guys, because most of these guys are available in fantasy right now. They have lost Brandon Marshall. They don't have, obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. Even Sterling Shepard is injured. And there's another guy that's on IR. I don't even remember what his name is. I was looking through the list of Giant wide receivers. Yeah, there you go. I was looking through the list of Giant wide receivers. They are decimated at that position. Someone has to catch passes. And if you're in a PPR league, tell us who it is that we should be picking up, guys.
Well, right now, I believe their number 1 receiver is Roger Lewis. I mean, I don't know much about him. I believe that's going to be their number 1 guy for now. I know they brought up a couple guys from the practice squad. Travis Rudolph, who played at Florida State last year, is a guy. I don't know where he is really on the depth chart, if he's going to start on the opposite side, if he's a slot guy. But, I mean, they should all be available. So you can basically pick up anybody that says New York Giants wide receiver on the side. You're going to throw darts at them. We don't know who is going to be their number 1 guy there.
I'm right there with Steve. My guy, I've picked up Roger Lewis in a few leagues because you never know what's going to happen. With all these injuries, he said it perfectly. You're just throwing a dart at the board and hoping somebody lands. I went with Roger Lewis. I don't I don't know anybody left. It's hard to find a team where I go there and I'm like, I don't know any of these wide receivers. But that is the case with the New York Giants right now. And, God, they need to sign Victor Cruz back. They need somebody there. Even with how old Victor is, he'd probably be a lead receiver there easily. So, I mean, I'm going with Roger Lewis too. I picked him up just to be safe in a few leagues. I have no problem dropping him in 1 to 2 weeks, but he's my guy too. I went with Roger Lewis. Who knows what'll happen? Let's see how it goes.
I think Roger Lewis is a safe add. Victor Cruz's agent actually reached out to the Giants, and McAdoo flat out said, yeah, we're going to ride with what we have, but if anything changes, we'll let you know. And so that says right there that they're not really interested in bringing Mr. Salsa Dancing back. So that's all I had for that. I just wanted to find out who your guy's sleeper was as far as the wide receiver position for the New York Football Giants.
Of course, man, and that seems to be about it. I had it closed just so I could look at the fantasy app, but I'm going to look one more time at the live chat. I don't see any questions, so obviously you can ask any of us. I'm sure Mike would be fine with it too. I've never asked him, but give us a shout-out on Twitter. Mine is Dylan Frazier98. I'll let them go ahead and shoot their Twitter names out real quick. Ask any of us what opinions you have on fantasy football or any football, really. I love talking football.
Yeah, you can go ahead and shoot me. It's S. Mullen Jr. Any questions? Tag me, tag Dylan, tag Mike. We'll be happy to answer them for you.
All right, and like we said in the beginning of this, it's 49ers Mike _NF. Bring it on, guys. All the questions. You might not like my answer, but I'm going to give you what I believe. That's it. I got to follow my gut in fantasy football. That's what it's all about, man. You got to follow your gut. Every week there's somebody that's out there that nobody saw hitting, blowing up, and it's going to happen this week also. Maybe it's Lewis. You never know. You never know.
Of course, and as always, like we try to end every 49ers podcast here at Nothing But Niners, I want to let everybody else know, even through hard times, you may be losing your favorite football player on the 49ers. His name might be Navarro Bowman, and you might miss him. But above all else, stay faithful. We'll catch you next time here on Nothing But Fantasy.
See you next week, guys.